The Music Room, Part 1. Symmetry is what we see at a glance, based on the fact that there is no reason for any difference, and based also on the face of man, whence it happens that symmetry is only wanted in breadth, not in height or depth. Blaise Pascal. Following the previous episodes on ordinary information, I should have called it representative information, maybe. I had planned to write some organized objections to what I thought might be the likely rebuttals. I'm reading Searle's Minds, Brains, and Programs, and this is how he organizes himself. Perhaps, for example, I haven't understood emergent properties. Yes, words in a book are just paper and ink, and further down atoms, subatomic particles, etc. But isn't that an argument against reductive materialism, rather than physicalism generally? And what about the sign? Does it really tell us about threatened officials, or is it just a true-false indicator, a 1 or 0, like an arbitrary bit? And speaking of bits, what about AI? Doesn't the all-too-human term intending sender immediately beg the question? I think this will not be the last we hear of Agent Sparrow, but I do think we need a little break. Let's talk about something completely different today. Let's talk about the first time I entered Father's music room. Now, I had passed by it many times without daring to enter. The room was grand and courtly, with a high ceiling, paintings, mirrors. There was something sacred about it, or at least regal. Father's writing desk and books were there, but none of that interested me. There was only one object of central interest to me, and it stood in the center of the room. When I finally did go in, I went straight toward it. A double piano. A huge rectangular thing with dark lacquered wood and a keyboard on either side of it, such that duets could be played on this unusual singular instrument. It was only when I sat down when I noticed an even more peculiar thing about the already peculiar instrument. Why are you sitting there? It was Father's voice, behind me. I froze. He waited for an answer. I wanted to apologize, but all that could come out involved the extreme oddity I was presently viewing. There are no black keys on it, I reported, stunned. None, returned Father, unimpressed. Why should there be? I dislike the sound of sharps, I dislike the sound of flats, and I detest enharmonic spellings. For someone quite clever, Father was sometimes irreconcilable and incomprehensible. What are you, a jazz musician, upper extensions, and so forth? He was still talking. No, I said. I like popular music. I like triads, I confessed. Well, it's doubtful you'll need all 12 major triads in a single tune. I thought I might need an A-flat to play For No One in C, but I didn't think it wise to tell Father that now. He continued, but I'll ask again, why are you seated there? I'm sorry, Father, I should have asked before I entered. No, I mean, why are you seated there? Why aren't you seated in the front of the piano? Father was truly strange. What an objection. Was I to tell him outright that the piano was completely back to front symmetrical? I'm afraid I don't know which end is the front, Father? Don't know. Stand up, please. How could I? They're the same, I protested. But I stood. Now, I suppose you know which side is the bottom. I rolled my eyes. It's the side touching the ground. Touching the ground? This statement of mine outraged Father unaccountably. Would you give the same answer, he asked, if it were upside down? No, Father, I admitted, baffled. Just so. And if I were to stand on my head, this he proceeded to do admirably while he continued talking, I would be upside down. And by the time he said it, he was. And what would I mean by saying I was upside down? He answered his own question before I could interject. I would surely mean that my upside, that is, my head, he was pointing and gesticulating while standing on his head, was aimed towards the earth. That's the down bit. He righted himself with swift agility. I suppose then, I rephrased carefully, the legs are the bottom of the piano. Correct. And that will be true whether it's downside up, upside down, or flipped on its side and rotated to 270 degrees. Indeed, son, it will be true if our white-keyed double piano is floating through space. Its legs are its down, he said with triumphant emphasis. All of this seemed a shocking and pedantic development in our conversation. We weren't, as far as I could see, any closer to identifying what Father thought was the front of the piano. Yet, in a few minutes, I would know this symmetrical double piano's back from front with utter clarity.